Welcome to Magnificat TV news, dedicated to offering news of the Church. Today is Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Unless there are last-minute changes, the Holy Father will travel to Iraq. There he will support the persecuted Christian community and hold the hand of the Shiites. The situation in the Church in Germany is getting worse. The President of the Episcopal Conference has announced that he will give communion to Protestants, although it is not allowed. In the face of criticism by the European Union, the bishops of Europe have expressed their support for Poland after having banned abortion for the handicapped. The Bishop of Arecibo in Puerto Rico, Bishop Fernandez, has denounced the imposition of gender ideology by the civil authorities. The Holy Father will arrive in Iraq this Friday. His presence there will be a source of consolation and support for the Christian community, and also an invitation to dialogue with Islam.
The Pope's visit to Iraq, considered high risk because of possible terrorist attacks, is being made under the slogan, "We are all brothers." It is an attempt to build bridges with the Muslim branch of the Shiites, the majority in the country.
On Friday, upon his arrival, he will be received at the Presidential Palace by the President of the Republic. There he will deliver his first speech to the diplomatic corps. On the same day, at the Catholic Cathedral, he will meet with bishops, priests, nuns, seminarians, and catechists.
On Saturday, he will visit Nayaf, which is the third holy place of Islam. A meeting with Ayatollah al-Sistani, the country's top Shiite leader, is planned. Although the Vatican tried to have some kind of document in favor of dialogue signed, it has not been possible. The Pope will then visit Ur, which is the original homeland of Abraham.
On Sunday, the Holy Father will go to Iraqi Kurdistan and the Nineveh Plain, where the majority of Iraqi Catholics used to live. In Erbil, he will celebrate Mass in a stadium. He will then return to Baghdad for the night, and on Monday morning will return to Rome. The Church in Germany is heading towards schism. The President of the Episcopal Conference has announced that in his diocese he will give communion to Protestants. Poland has banned abortion on the grounds of fetal disability.
In a clear challenge to the Holy See and in the direction of schism, the Bishop of Limburg and President of the Episcopal Conference, Monsignor Botzing, has assured that he gives communion to any Protestant who requests it, and that the priests of his diocese do the same.
Monsignor Botzing told reporters at a press conference yesterday that it is necessary to respect the personal decision of conscience of those who wish to receive communion. The bishop added that this is already a practice in Germany every Sunday.
Also, this week, a significant event took place. The leaders of the feminist movement, Maria Thuot, wanted to imitate Luther by nailing 7 theses to German Catholic cathedrals. One bishop, the Bishop of Augsburg, took a photo with them.
The movement calls for a gender-just church in which all persons have access to all positions, as well as the clarification, prosecution, and combating of the causes of sexual violence. Furthermore, they demand an appreciative attitude towards self-determined sexuality and the abolition of mandatory celibacy.
They call for the access of women to the priesthood and the episcopate, the acceptance of gender ideology, including homosexuality and transsexuality.
And this has caused a fierce reaction on the part of the European Union. The European bishops, on the other hand, have shown their support for the people of Poland.
The bishops of the European Union have sent a letter to the President of the European Parliament criticizing the condemnation of the sentence of the Constitutional Court of Poland that outlawed abortion in case of non-viability or disability of the fetus. The prelates recall that there is no human right to abortion.
In their letter, the European bishops stress once again that the Catholic Church, which seeks to support women in life situations resulting from difficult or unwanted pregnancies, ask that all future life be protected and cared for.
From a legal point of view, the bishops emphasized neither European Union legislation nor the European Convention on Human Rights provides for the right to abortion. This matter is left to the legal systems of the member states.
One of the fundamental principles of the European Union is the principle of entrustment, by virtue of which the Union acts only within the limits of the competences assigned to it by the member states of the treaties.
In their letter, the bishops expressed their concern about the questioning of the fundamental right to conscientious objection, which stems from freedom of conscience and which is fundamental in sectors such as health.
The imposition of gender ideology in Puerto Rico has led the Bishop of Arecibo, Bishop Fernandez, to ask civil authorities if it is possible to be even a Christian in that country.
The Bishop of Arecibo in Puerto Rico, Monsignor Daniel Fernandez, has criticized the bill that endorses penalties for parents that would prevent them from exercising custody of their own children if they speak out against gender ideology.
On February 25th, Bishop Fernandez sent a letter to the President of the Senate and members of the Legislative Assembly to express his opposition to bills that would impose gender ideology on the island.
In the letter, labeled, "Is it a crime to be a Christian in Puerto Rico?" it warns that there will be religious intolerance in trying to impose punishment for accusations of institutional mistreatment with respect to the teaching of gender ideology.
The bill defines as mistreatment of minors any effort or treatment aimed at changing the behavior or sexual orientation of a person, as well as eliminating or reducing romantic or sexual inclinations towards persons of the same gender.
For the Bishop of Arecibo, this law not only attacks religious entities, but also affects home education. Parents who make such efforts will be considered child abusers and risk losing the exercise of parental authority.
Thus, any effort to transmit to children the truth about human nature translates into religious persecution, since parents with convictions who attempt to transmit their religious beliefs to their own children will be accused of mistreatment.
He also recalled that Pope Francis refers to gender ideology as an ideological colonization in which one sins against God the Creator because one wants to change creation as He has made it.
Our editorial this week is dedicated to commenting on Pope Francis's trip to Iraq if there are no changes. Next Friday, March 5th, unless something unforeseen happens at the last minute, the Holy Father will travel to Iraq. It is not a high-risk trip. It is a very high-risk trip. The Pope has been vaccinated. He has received 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. The journalists accompanying him will also be vaccinated. There is always the possibility of contagion, but that risk is minimal, tiny compared to the risk of an attack. On the same day, about a month ago, when the program of the trip was presented in Baghdad, there was a terrible attack in that city by radical Islamists that left several dead and hundreds wounded. It is a warning. If this is so, if the Pope is endangering his life and the lives of others, one must necessarily ask why he is making this trip. On the one hand, I believe that the first reason is to comfort, to console the few Catholics who have remained after the massacres by the Islamists who occupied, as is well known, a large part of the country, especially the part known as the Nineveh Plain, where most of these Catholics lived. Cardinal Sacco, Patriarch of Babylon of the Chaldeans, who is the highest Catholic authority in Iraq, has repeated many times in recent days that this is the reason for the trip, that he is very grateful to the Pope for the effort and the risk he is going to take to comfort and encourage this small, suffering and decimated population. We must not forget that Sacco was born in one of the worst hit areas in Iraq's Kurdistan, and he knows what he's talking about. But that is not the only reason for the trip. Through his pontificate, the Holy Father has been seeking an alliance with the main religion after Christianity, which is Islam. He's looking to Islam as an ally to confront the increasingly aggressive secularism of the West. It is not an easy alliance to achieve, not only for radical Muslims. In the famous meeting in Abu Dhabi, when the Declaration for Human Fraternity was signed with the Egyptian Imam of Al-Azhar, who is the highest religious figure of Sunni Islam, which is the majority within Islam, a step forward was taken at that meeting. Well, there is a public manifestation of fraternity between these two great religions. But Islam has another branch, a little smaller than the Sunnis, but very important, and which is also the majority in Iraq, and most of all in its neighbor Iran, the Shiites. The Vatican has tried until the last minute to sign some kind of joint communique with the Shiite leader al-Hassani, but has not succeeded. But there will be a visit by the Pope to the city of Najaf, which is the third holiest place for the Shiites after Medina and Mecca, because that is where Imam Ali, the founder of Shiism, is buried. There he will receive al-Hassani, and there they will take a photo. It is true that a picture is worth more than 1,000 words, and that is probably what can be achieved. Is it worth it? I repeat, this is the question. Is it worth it? So far, the Holy Father is trying. Nevertheless, the results have not been many. That is to say, secularism in the West is becoming more and more aggressive. Just look at the overwhelming policies in the United States that Biden is implementing in favor of gender ideology, and which, by the way, are meeting with the rejection of the majority of the American Catholic bishops, if not all of them. So far, this alliance with Muslims has therefore not slowed down secularism, nor has it done much to reduce terrorist attacks in Iraq itself. Well, you have to ask those in Central Africa who are being punished day in and day out. But I think we have to try, because sometimes results are not achieved overnight. The Pope is seeking an alliance of believers in the world, in particular with Islam, to confront the secularist radicalism that is the main threat not only to Christians but to religions as a whole. The risk is obvious, but in the meantime, problems are increasing at home. This week, that German feminist collective that claims to be Catholic, which should be said to be supposedly Catholic, and which is known as Mary 2.0, has wanted to openly and publicly emulate Luther, the reformer who started Protestantism. I don't say nailing, because it is no longer the style of our time, but sticking some thesis in favor of everything imaginable that the most radical feminists can ask for. Female priesthood, homosexuality, everything. Well, they have stuck them on the doors of the cathedrals. It so happens that several bishops, for example the Bishop of Augsburg, have come out to the door of the cathedral to be photographed with the representative of this group who had just pasted the poster. To be photographed in a friendly manner with them, thus giving them a photographic show of support. The bishops, a majority of the German bishops, are on the one hand supporting these demands, which are openly against the doctrine of the Church. But on the other hand, the Secretary of the Episcopal Conference and the President of the Episcopal Conference say that there is no risk of schism and that they will not go against what the Pope allows them to do. Possibly they're playing a double game. They're playing a double game, pushing the most radical basis while trying to pretend that nothing is going to happen. This could turn against them because if the feminists of Mary 2.0, popularly called the Marys, if the Marys feel used or manipulated, they could turn against those who now give them hugs in front of photographers. In any case, clouds, dark clouds, within the house itself, while the Holy Father is very concerned about what is happening in Germany, he tries to shake hands with the Muslims to offer a peaceful and pacifying face to all religions and to make a common front in the face of secularism. Well, I repeat, the risk is evident and we can only pray. This week or next week will be decisive. We have to pray. We have to pray a lot for the Church, for the problems inside, which are very serious. We have to pray a lot for the Pope. May God protect him and keep him alive. Until next week, God willing. If you'd like to be up to date to what is happening in the Catholic Church, please visit our website catholicosonline.org. Until next week, God willing.